Hey students of theROARstore, this is Mr. Brinkmeyer with your InTouch point of sale system tutorial. A reminder that in your employee handbook you'll find screenshots of the point of sale and some detailed notes about the buttons that you'll find on the screen that I'll show you here shortly, along with what each of those buttons do. I would strongly recommend that if you haven't reviewed that recently, that you go ahead and start with the employee handbook, review the functions of each of the buttons that are highlighted in that guide, and then jump back in and watch the rest of this video. So when you are working in the store, you'll be looking for this little icon down here at the bottom. It looks like an I and a T, just like you see right here. That's our InTouch receiving POS terminal entryway. And when you're in the store or when you're working in the stadium store or at the kiosk, you're going to be using the InTouch terminal. That's the button that you need to select. Once you select the terminal, it's going to ask you to log in. Your login is going to be the same as your When I Work login. So check your When I Work app or check in with Mr. Brinkmeyer, and I can let you know what that's going to be. When you get this screen for Terminal 1, just go ahead and say OK unless you hear otherwise from me. The reason why it asks you for this is we can potentially run 5 different terminals at any given time should we need to. Very rarely will we ever run more than one at a time, occasionally 2. But for most occurrences, unless you hear otherwise from me, select terminal number 1. And you can see now that we are in, and this is pretty much the same look that you're going to see unless the buttons get changed around, and that's very likely. The first thing that I'll point to is your name should appear up here. So instead of student last, it'll be your last name, student first, your first name. This is going to be your base screen, and to get back to that at any point, you can always just use this button called Quick Screen. In order to make a transaction, we need to add some items. When we're working in the stadium store, at the kiosk, or in the brick and mortar store, it's not uncommon that you're going to use the scanner and use the barcodes that can be found on many of the items. If you can't find a barcode, you should use the lookup inventory button and as best you can describe what the item is. This is what that will look like on your end. I would strongly encourage, rather than scrolling through 100 or more different SKUs, I would encourage you to look for the description. So if it's an obvious thing, like you know that it is a Nike item, you can see that it will find anything that has the word Nike in the description. If you don't change that, anything that you type up here is going to be looked for in the item column. Most of the time, we do not put the name of the manufacturer in the item number. Typically, it is some abbreviation. So you might get a little bit lucky and find NK, which is commonly used for Nike. But in most cases, changing this to the description is the best way to go. So let's say, for example, we are going to sell this Champion Tri-Blend, and it's going to be in a size large. You can select it and say OK, and you'll notice that it puts the item up here. Again, if you're in the store and you have a scanner and a barcode, you're just going to scan that item. It will beep at you, and most of the time it will automatically show up here. Just because it beeps at you does not guarantee that it will automatically put this in your shopping basket, if you want to call this the shopping basket. So make sure that after you scan it, that it actually shows up here. So if I want to get back to my main screen, let's say that's the only item that I didn't have a barcode for, I can quickly get back here by going to the quick screen. Now, I've also determined that somebody's coming in and they're going to buy some lip balm. Please make sure you know which lip balm they're purchasing, either cherry or peppermint, says on the label. And so I'm going to add a lip balm, and I can use the back button. And let's say that they're going to go ahead and buy one of the regular stadium chairs, and they're going to buy one of the wide stadium chairs. Now, you'll notice that on purpose, there's an error. They purchased the stadium chair a regular size, and they purchased a stadium chair wide. Well, clearly the stadium chair wide is not $12. You can see in the description this is actually just the seat back. So if somebody were to lose the back of their stadium chair, we sell replacements on those. So we need to get rid of this last item. And by clicking on the item, we get a new set of options. We can clear the sale, which is going to clear every single thing here. We can clear the line, which in this case is what we want to do. We could also change the price. Typically, you're only going to do this with my permission, so don't get in the habit of changing the price of the product, please. You can also add to the quantity. So if this person decides that they want 2 stadium chairs, you can say OK, and it will add the items there. You can also add a memo. Typically, tax rate, AC, and memo are going to go unused on your end. So I really would probably suggest you only really need to be familiar with these 4. So we're going to clear this line. We're going to go back in. We're going to add the wide stadium chair. And let's assume that our customer is now ready to check out. We do not charge tax because we fall under the umbrella of a tax-exempt school district, public school district. So if anybody asks, that's why. And again, let's assume that they have everything that they want. You'll potentially go to finish sale, but before I get to this, I want to show you this bar down here at the bottom. This bar, as it says, is for quick cash. If somebody gave you exactly $120, you can click even, and it's automatically going to open your cash drawer, allow you to put the cash into the drawer, spit out the receipt, and that customer is ready to go. If that customer doesn't have the right amount, or it's not even, then I would encourage you to follow the example of the finish sale button. The finish sale item, or the finish sale button rather, shows you that $120 is due and gives you the option to select cash, check, or credit cards. Please just disregard the other account buttons. You really don't need to worry about that. Okay. What you're going to do is select whatever form of payment they would like to use. Let's assume that they're going to write a check. If you select check, the next thing that you do is you select OK. In fact, you do that for any one of these tender types. If you say cash, you have to say OK next. If you say credit card, you have to say OK next. But let's assume that it's a check. If someone writes a check, they can write the check out to Linmar. It does not need to be made out to the theROARstore. And you can see that you're prompted to write the check number. The check number is the number that's in the upper right-hand corner of a check. So if someone has written that to you, typically that's a 3, 4, or 5-digit number. And what I would also like you to include in this is not only the number, but the last name of the person listed on the check. I am unable to add any more of a description up here, so please make an effort to remember the check number and the last name of the person. If this is correct, you'll click OK. We do not allow individuals to take cash out of our drawer by writing more than the amount of the transaction. So if someone says, I'll write you a $150 check, if you can give me $30 cash back, we are unable and unwilling to do that. Okay. For our purposes today for training, I'm just going to hit cancel, but normally if it were a real transaction, you would say, okay, it would tell you that it's approved and it would spit out a receipt. If the person is using a credit card, and you should get used to this because it's very common, you'll click credit card followed by OK. In this case, it asks you to swipe the card. On the upper left side of our register or our monitor at either location, the stadium store, kiosk, or brick and mortar store, it's in the upper left corner of the monitor. You'll swipe the card with the magnetic stripe, the black stripe, typically it's black, on the back of the card. You will turn that black stripe towards you, and you'll either swipe it up or down in one fluid movement. It doesn't matter which direction it goes as long as it's constantly moving. You'll see a bunch of dots go through this bar where the cursor is blinking. That means that it's processing it, and that means that it's read the card. If you get a message that says error, can't read card, I would encourage you to try and swipe it again. If it says denied, I would encourage you to try and swipe it again. If it says anything other than accepted, I would try and swipe it again. Sometimes there are hiccups in our Wi-Fi and internet system that the timing just happens to be right and it doesn't take the card, but if you try it a second time, it may work. We are not allowed to use the manual button and enter this information in because an individual would then have to give us their PIN. We don't want to get in the habit of doing that. So if the card doesn't work, I would politely ask them if there's another way that they could pay for it. Another option, if they say no, is to simply hold the items for them, grab one of the hold slips out of the register at the brick and mortar store, take down their name and contact information, and hold it until the next time that we're open. Okay. If it is cash and it's more than $120, let's say that they give you three $50 bills, please put in the amount that they give you, followed by cash, followed by OK. It will then tell you how much change to give, so you don't have to remember it or do the math in your head. And while this is a fairly simple transaction, I hope that you can do 150 minus 120 in your head. This eliminates the need to have to worry about that. Okay. You can split payments. So if somebody wants to give you $50 cash, you could say cash and OK, and it's now going to deduct the $50 and give you a new total of 70. If they want to put the remaining 70 on their check or on a credit card, they could absolutely do that. Okay. After you click OK, it's always going to spit out a receipt. It's going to tell you that it's been approved. The cash register drawer is automatically going to be ejected so that you can put the cash or the check into the appropriate slots. The slots are left to right, largest to smallest. So on the right would be $1 bills, then 5, then 10, then 20, then a space, and then anything above a $20 bill and or checks should go in the very last slot on the left, the sixth space. All of the change is ordered the same way. Pennies are on the right, followed by nickels, followed by dimes, followed by quarters. There's a limited amount of change always kept in the register at the brick and mortar store should you happen to need it. Okay, so let's say that we've made a transaction. We are all good to go here. In this case, we are going to cancel this altogether. And we are going to zero this out. We do not want this transaction to occur. Okay. Once you complete a transaction, it will bring you back to this screen. Most of the buttons that you see here, the history, info, student lookup, non-student lookup, those are not going to be buttons that you're going to use. The lookup inventory, the quick screen, and the finish sale buttons are the only buttons that you're likely to use on a regular basis on this particular screen. When you are done working, you should sign out of your account. If you happen to hit more, you'll notice that the sign out button changes to an exit. Exit means that you're still signed in. So it's always best to sign out. And when you do that, you'll notice that it brings you back here and it's ready for the next person to use. The other button down here, the More button, will provide you with some different options that you may not ever need to use, but is a good idea to know how to use. The first one up here is the Adjust Receipt button. And when you click OK, you'll get a new window and ask you for a receipt number. Okay, I'm going to look for receipt number 1234. And in a moment, it should find it. All right, there's 123, so we'll go with that. Here's receipt number 123 all the way back to 2014. Let's click on that. Let's say, even though we would not accept in 2020 a shirt that was purchased in 2014, let's assume for our purposes that it is the same. This individual made two purchases, $20 each, and they used the check $43.65. These were pre-ordered items way back in the very first year of our operations. Let's assume that this is current day. This individual does not want this item. What we can do on this screen, this is the Adjust Receipt screen, what we can do is we can go in here and we can say they had a problem. It was either a damaged item or they want to exchange it for something else, or maybe they said, I just didn't like this, or my parents bought it for me and I don't like it. Whatever the reason is, that's fine. You're going to go ahead and select the item, or the reason rather, say okay, and if in this case, if we exchange the item, then we have to go and we have to find the appropriate item. Now in this case, the items are not the same. They're not the same price. One was $20, one was $32. Unfortunately for us, our system doesn't know the difference. Our system assumes that every exchange is an even exchange, and of course this is not the case. If we were to give them this item, they would owe us $12 more. And what we would need to do in this case is we would need to make a false transaction to collect the $12. What we would do in that case, we would use the donation button. We would make a $12 donation. And what we would do now is we would use the memo button and we would say amount is for exchange, and maybe we would do the original receipt number, or not maybe, we would do the original receipt number so that our business office can go back and look and find out why there's a $12 donation, that it's for an exchange for receipt number. You could put number in there if you wanted to. Receipt number 123. Okay, that's now going to show up on their receipt and it's going to show up in our reports as well. So that's one option. If they decide that they purchased an item and they don't want it at all, they don't want to exchange it, they just want to get their money back, we'll take the same receipt here. We'll find the first item that we previously selected and we're just going to refund it. Now, in this case, what we need to do is we need to basically just say, okay, you don't need to do anything more with this screen. You would say, okay. Then behind the register, in one of the drawers, in the middle drawer, there is a refund slip. We are not allowed to put money back on an individual's credit card. We are not allowed to take money out of our cash register simply to make a return. The only way, and this is really important that you hear this, the only way that we can return cash to an individual for a return is if they made the purchase that day and if they used cash. If someone made a purchase on a credit card today and they decided to return the item and ask for cash back, the answer is no. We are not allowed to do that. The only way that we can give an individual cash back for a return is when an item is purchased the same day with cash. Okay, so again, item is going to be returned. We're going to say okay, and we're going to find the refund form that is in the drawer behind the register at the brick and mortar store. You'll ask them to fill out the top half. You can fill out the bottom half with the receipt number and the amount of money that's owed to them. If you can, make a copy of the receipt and staple that to the item. The way to make a copy of the receipt is simply to go right here to reprint receipt. We've been using 123, so type that in there, click OK, and you hang on to that original receipt. Staple it to the refund form and give it to me the next time that you see me. Okay, that's how you reprint a receipt. If, and very rarely do we, but if you need to give a discount, if somebody has a voucher that says they are receiving a discount at the theROARstore, go ahead and give it to them, even though we don't technically take coupons. But the Booster Club does have coupons that sometimes they give out. Typically they are for 25%. And in this case, it would look like this. The discount percent would be 25%. Whatever is in your basket here will be discounted that amount. If by chance you put in an item and discount that item, and then put in a new item afterwards, it will put that item in at the full retail price. If the discount is off of their entire purchase, don't do the discount until they're done giving you everything that they're purchasing. Okay, the no sale button is connected to the cash drawer. If for some reason you didn't put the cash into the cash drawer when it was given to you, or you forgot to put the check in the cash register, while it does happen often, we hope that you'll remember to do it when the cash drawer is open. To open the cash drawer, you simply hit no sale and it will do that for you. The last button is the EOP button. The EOP button shows us all of the transactions that have occurred since the last time we hit this button. What this enables us to do is it enables us to see all of the transactions, and it also is going to allow us to count up all of the cash that we have on hand, put those items in here, and then when we hit OK after this screen, it's going to tell us whether or not our drawer is accurate, whether it's on or whether it's off. Sometimes the drawer is short, sometimes the drawer is long, but the drawer is always, the goal for the drawer is always to be exactly even. We start each day with $85 in the brick and mortar store, in the cash register. And at one point after we hit OK, it's going to ask us for the starting amount. That's the amount that we would put in, and it would tell us whether or not we have the right amount of money in our cash register. When adding items in here to the EOP, you are adding the number of items that are available. So for example, if you're counting 20s and there are 5 20s, that's how you would enter it. You are not writing in the value of the item. What you would be telling the system at this point is that you have $2,000 worth of 20s. So please note that it is only the number of bills or the number of coins that you are putting in, not the value. Okay, that's it for your initial tutorial. I will be posting a way for you to show what you learned from this video and from looking through the screenshots in your employee handbook. And once you've done that and successfully completed it with 100% accuracy, you will earn your student badge for the remaining part of the quarter. Thanks for watching.